This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMAjunkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMAjunkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. Did you hear that, Alex Davis?
Yes,
This is the only show that matters.
This is true.
Don't go on any other shows.
I don't.
We'll penalize you. That's Alex Davis, to my far right, extraordinaire manager, also a co-founder of American Top Team back in the day. Proud Brazilian.
Yeah, a Brazilian.
Good friend of the show.
Yep.
Goes to my right, our stellar co-host.
Brazil.
Yeah. Dan Tom, our latest addition. You met him, obviously,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Junkie Nation's starting to get to know him. This is his specialty. This is his big week, fight week, because he breaks down the fights like no other. Wait till you hear it. We're gonna do some breaking down of UFC 218 and the big show out in Detroit on Saturday. And of course, our producer back east, Danny Otto. What's up, Danny? How you doing?
Good. How about you guys?
Good, thank you. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Happy Hump Day. All right, so let's get started here. It's an early start show. We warned you. Kind of told you on Monday and Tuesday that this is what we'd be doing. And here we are. So UFC 218 is going to take place. But before all that, let me tell you guys, I had a little field trip to the UFC offices yesterday for a media day. And basically, Dana White was there to talk about The Ultimate Fighter Season 26, where they're going to crown a new flyweight champion. That'll be happening on Friday night. Now, we know one half of the equation is Nico Montano, who has already qualified by upsetting Barb Honchak in last week's semifinals. Tonight, there will be the last semifinal that'll air. The Sarge, they call her, Sijara Eubanks. I said that right?
Yep.
Against the number 1 seed, Roxanne Modafferi. The winner will obviously fight Nico Montana. And I believe they'll probably pair up the losers like they've done in the past. And I'm sure they'll reveal some other matchups. I know Deanna Bennett was recently added. And there's some other matchups like Brett Johns, guest of ours on Monday, who will face Joe Soto.
Good fight.
So, yeah, that fight card takes place Friday night here in Vegas. And then the next day, it's all about Detroit, UFC 218. Why they did that, I don't know. It's always been nice to just piggyback and have 2 shows in one city. But anyway, so Dana White got the media together to promote, or talk about that season. And as you can see, I walked in right as the show started. I just move slow. I have to budget way more time now for everything that I do. So I walked in about 3 minutes late. I asked one of the guys, what time did he start? He goes, 3 minutes ago. All right. If it had been 15, I probably would have kept my mouth shut because I would have not wanted to repeat something he had already covered. But they glanced over Tough 26, apparently. And by the time I got there, they were talking about Overeem and Ngannou, and it slowly moved over to Conor McGregor and just basically this long scrum. It's all over MMAjunkie. The guys have already started chopping it up. I think you can see the whole video, and you can see the finer points. What's GSP going to do? What's the deal with Conor? So, folks, if you have any questions that you've been wondering, holler at me or just go to Junkie and start reading. 866-522-2846. It was really, really fun to be there. Dana hadn't done that in a while, but he talked about everything going on. Conor apparently may have punched some Mafia guy, yeah. GSP, who's he going to defend against? What's the deal? When would they begin the process of stripping McGregor? Overeem, Ngannou, his thoughts there. I mean, we were all over the place. It was great. So, again, 866-522-2846. Now, when you don't call in, and we're not talking about news, we'll talk about UFC 218. And, of course, we'll ask our featured guest here, Alex Davis, about his stable of fighters, which includes John Lineker and Edson Barbosa.
This is true.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, let's start off with one other thing from about a month ago. When Colby Covington starts saying everything he did, you're in a pickle because you wear ATT. Those are your colors. And at the same time, you've been in the game long enough to know when someone's doing a shoot, and trying to basically promote themselves, but at the same time, has the line been crossed? And did you personally take offense? And where do you stand on that?
It's funny. I do have a kind of a weird position in that, but and I was there in São Paulo. I had 5 fighters. I had 5 fighters on that card, plus the 2 guest fighters, plus all my other Brazilian fighters were there. So I had 20 fighters. And as member of American Top Team, I had Colby's back there. Mm-hmm. If anything, it would have been needed, and I would have defended that kid. And I like Colby. I don't have a problem with him. And you know what? Colby went down there on a mission, and he accomplished it.
Tough mission too, huh?
He went there to gain notoriety, and he went there to beat Damian Maia. He did both. Now, unfortunately, it seems that the guys that are moving forward in these divisions are the guys that talk the most shit about people, And I don't like personally, I wouldn't say things like that about any country, but guess what? I mean, Colby gets there and people say he's going to die, and they curse him, and they call him names, and they throw things at him. And you know what? If it was me, I'd say the same things too. So I don't really have a kind of different position than all my Brazilian teammates, who are kind of upset about it and everything. But you know what? He's moving forward. People are talking about him. And I think Namajunas had a great point when she talked about negativity in the sport. Unfortunately, this is what's propelling guys' names and careers and getting them in the fights, And Colby needs to pay his bills as everybody else does, and it's working. Now, is that fortunate? Is it right? No, but it is what it is, I mean, it's bigger than anybody. So I think that Colby sometimes goes a little bit too far on it, But that's the second time he's been in Brazil, and the second time he's had things thrown at him, and the second time he's heard that he's going to die. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? Put yourself in his position. He went out, won a great fight, and he said, F you all. So I can't. And I like Colby personally. I don't have a problem with him, So that's where I'm at. And he's my teammate. And I'm Brazilian-American. I love my Brazilians. I love my Americans. But I'm ATT also, and he's my teammate.
What do you think is the difference between what he did and what Chael Sonnen did? Because Chael Sonnen actually was able to win over some Brazilians.
I think that Chael Sonnen is a little bit more experienced and practiced at doing that, Yeah, he's a little bit more intelligent in his comments, I think. That's what I think is different.
You think Colby might have got to a point where he realized maybe he did cross the line, but he's gone too far with it?
No, I don't think so. I think Colby really talked his heart out. He has people cursing at him and people telling him he's going to die, and he won the fight, and he let it all hang out. That's my read.
I believe that Chael was more of a storyteller. All the Nogueiras and the bus and a banana, I think a 5-year-old could go, he's bullshitting, I mean, that obviously didn't come close to happening, or could it happen? Whereas Colby, I think, was more venomous. Yeah. And when you are more venomous, a lot of people certain people will go, he's promoting the fight, relax, And then there's others like, well, how dare you? So I think he just got closer to that line because he lacks that creativity that Chael has. However, there are times when he's very creative, so he's just got to practice it. That's really, it's a form of acting, Alex, that I think fighters can actually get better at, because we've interviewed Chael back from the WEC, and he was a little bit he's way more serious back then. And slowly we saw him morph into a little bit more of an entertainer. He didn't just wake up one day and become funnier. He worked at it. You see what I'm saying? and it benefited him. Now, there's others that wake up that way, or they're born that way, I should say. Like, I believe Conor McGregor's just born that way, man. That guy's just been yapping for, his whole life, the 30 years he's been on the planet. But I've seen Chael slowly get better at it, and I think Colby, if he elects to be a heel and just continue down that road, he'll probably polish a few things up and just get better at it, and that'll be that.
Yeah, but the difference is that nobody told Chael he's going to die.
Oh, no, come on. You guys have been saying Uva Mohed for a long time.
But Chael never heard that. Chael never got hostilized by a crowd in Brazil.
Everybody that goes to Brazil gets hostilized.
No, but he was never on stage, never fought, never did anything like Colby's done it. That's twice. I was at both fights. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you said McGregor, but I'll tell you somebody else that's always been like that.
Sure.
is Bisping. I was at a fight in Cage Warriors where Bisping, he was still a purple belt. And he beat this guy, and he's always been like that. Some guys have that,
Bisping, however, now dedicates 75% of his dialogue to being like that versus before. It was always there. You just had to pull it out of him and get him going. Now I think he knows, okay, I got to do this. People expect this. But I'm just going to give you a what if here. You're AT&T. I'm sorry, ATT. He's your brother. You said that, right? But I know your boy Bigfoot kind of was one of the guys that wanted to straighten him out. Where do you get in between these guys?
Or
has Bigfoot calmed his nerves on that one?
I'll quote Dan on that, Dan Lambert.
Yeah.
Dan Lambert said, listen, if you guys want to fight outside the gym, it's your problem, but don't bring that stuff inside the gym. I'll kick all of you out of here. I think that was a very good position. And I think Bigfoot should worry about his own problems, too. So, I mean, everybody takes it the way they take it. I'm a little bit more even, and I was there, and I get it a little bit more. Bigfoot's out there listening. It's different. And Brazilians are funny. They're patriotic about like soccer and stuff like that, and other things are not patriotic. And Brazil, if you look at Brazil right now, we're in a very unfortunate situation. So.
Which situation is that?
Economically, politically, and socially. I mean, we have in Brazil people.
President was removed a few years ago, right?
Listen. I don't know, it's because of all the Trump news here, but Brazil has uncovered the biggest corruption scandals, not in Brazilian history, in human economic history. The corruption scandals, the numbers are astronomical. They're fantastic. There's something, and nobody knows about it here. Nobody's even seeing it. It's amazing. You have the 8th economy in the world. The corruption scandal, the Brazilian petroleum company was 4th. It's now 20th because of corruption. Oh. It's amazing corrupt. The World Cup and the Olympic Games were bought. You never heard about this stuff, right? It's in the news. It's all over the place, but people here are not listening to that stuff.
I remember how upset people were for the amount of money that was being put into that and not into the system itself.
It was stolen. All the stadiums and all the bicycle way that's along the coast has already fallen apart. The biggest soccer stadium
that's happened with a lot of host cities,
but not like Brazil. I'm telling you right now, nothing. I tell you, there's never.
Well, the soccer stadiums, I imagine, will keep on going, right?
Yeah, but the thing is that these big projects in Brazil, the money that's been stolen out of these big projects it's astounding. It's something completely nobody's ever seen in economic history.
You said Bigfoot. You teased it. I'm asking. You said he's got his own problems. Is he okay, or?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to think about his own fights, and he's he's like at the twilight of his career. He just operated his knee. Everybody was throwing stones and bricks at me because of the Rico Van Hooven fight, but Bigfoot actually carried himself very well in that fight, and he needs to keep on fighting.
I think we've asked you this before. Basically, you feel like there's a few of those fights he shouldn't have taken, but in the end he decides. Is that still your stance?
As a manager, my obligation in my contract is I have to give these guys any offer that comes on my table. I can tell them, listen, I don't think it's a good idea, or I think it's a good idea, but at the end of the day, who decides is the fighter. It's not me. And Bigfoot, even if he had been really smart with his money, he didn't need to fight, he was still taking that fight because he has got a big heart, and he always wanted to test himself in a K1 start fight.
Number one guy, though,
That's the fight that came
I saw Verhoeven at Conor McGregor's after party for the Mayweather fight. It was in passing. and we've had him on the show before. So even though we're MMA junkie, we still talk to different fighters from different sports. And I asked him, I go, how'd that fight come about? You know, like, I don't follow the sport, but I would imagine you work your way up, you know? And he just kind of smiled. He goes, I don't know. They asked. I said, okay. But he had this look like, you know, like, what do you want from me? I'm getting paid, and the lesser experienced they are, the better for me. And I guess I have to, like, take my hat off and go, yeah, I suppose. Same way Verhoeven would probably get his ass kicked by Bigfoot if he were to come over to MMA. You know what I mean? It's a whole different sport.
Well,
but I was wondering how that happened.
That was my proposal. I said, okay, we came to kickboxing, fought you, now come over to MMA and fight me.
Yeah.
But Audie didn't like that idea. Audie's his manager.
Yeah. All right.
So with Brazil and the state of the country, when you look at some of the fighters and some of the fighters that we grew up with looking at, you know, Vanderlei Silva, the Nogueira brothers, Vitor Belfort is now kind of on his way out. We don't know what's going to happen with Anderson Silva. Jose Aldo lost his belt. What's that state of? I mean, I know you have some hot prospects. How do we fill that void for Brazilians? How are they taking that?
Well, you know, in Brazil right now, you have soccer as the main sport, and MMA is the second biggest sport in Brazil. But you do not have any big events that are really feet on the ground, able to pay people. It's not like you're in the States. The MMA industry is a little bit more solid than it is in Brazil, amazingly enough, okay? But you have all these kids, 18-year-olds, 20 years old, that still have Anderson and Aldo and the Nogueira brothers in their brains and in their dreams, you know? And they're working hard to become like that. And there is some amazing talent. But they have a problem there. Since, let's think about the UFC. Since the UFC did the year before last, or the year before that, I think was 7 shows in Brazil. Last year they did 3, and this year 3. So what happened is now they have like 70 Brazilian fighters on the roster, and they don't want more Brazilians. Their market in Brazil shrinked, and they have too many Brazilians now, okay? And that's also, that trickles down into the rest of the industry, because take LFA. LFA has 2 or 3 Brazilian champions, right? Since the UFC is not hiring Brazilians, then LFA gets stuck with the Brazilian champions. And so they don't move forward. So now here in the States, and then there's another thing about, so we say, well, okay, like what I do, I bring Brazilians up here to the States, but in regional shows, they don't want to hire a tough Brazilian to kick their local stars. They don't want that, you know. Like, try to get a Brazilian to 1FC. I have 1 Brazilian in 1FC, notably Adriano Moraes. He's their flyweight champion. I have a kid that could be their what is it, flyweight champion, 115.
Mm-hmm.
Have a kid
Strawweight,
yeah. They don't want him because they know he's going to win, and they're not going to get him out of there, you know. So it's a very difficult point in time for a Brazilian athlete, because he doesn't have any shows that pay him well in Brazil, and he has a problem getting fights outside Brazil. So some of these amazing athletes that I have, for example, one of them, Amanda Ribas, I'm telling you right now, in the gym with Joanna, she would put on amazing training sessions. And this is a girl that not only that, she's just an amazing girl. The moment she gets up into the ring, we're going to have a new Ronda. She's beautiful. She's charming. She was an Olympic-level judo player, similar to Ronda, right? And she, of course, they found Osterine in her system. She didn't take anything. It's because of the supplement problems in Brazil, which is another effect of the crisis, because Brazilian supplements companies are buying stuff in China from third tier, and we're having a lot. JDS and Marco Rogério and Amanda, these are all, positive tests that come from the same problem, you know. So this girl is going to be a while before we see her, but she's amazing. I have other talent like that, you know, and I really like, one of the things I like best about the way I manage is I like to bring the Cowboys and the Linekers and the Barbas. I like to help the really poor fighters, and to me, it's not only about the money I can make, it's to change their lives, you know. And I've done it with Rosemar Palhares and with Lineker and Barboza and all these guys, you know. And these are awesome talents, and especially if you see where they came from, you know. So that's kind of where we're at with Brazil.
Why isn't the UFC hiring Brazilians, which is the way you phrase it? They're not signing new Brazilians at all, or
they'll
you've
sign
been told
them.
that, or
No, they'll sign Brazilians. Of course they'll. Like the kid Borrachinha, amazing fighter.
Paulo Costa, yeah.
Yeah, if you have an amazing fighter, they'll pick him up. But they're not. They'll think twice before they hire a Brazilian because their market right now, the Brazilians, unless it's a Paulo Costa or somebody like that, or an Amanda, it doesn't really do a lot for them here in the States. And their market right now in Brazil, because of the crisis, it went from 7 shows to 3 shows. So they don't have a lot of people, spots to put these Brazilians on.
What happened to Tough Brazil? They stopped filming it?
They stopped it.
Okay, and then a lot of it had to do with, I think you guys were on Globo?
It's still on Global.
It's still on Global?
Yeah.
So what happened? Did ratings go down?
Yes,
or
the whole what happened is that as this corruption scandal started coming out, the whole Brazilian economy came to a halt. They impeached the president, and of course, as the whole economy starts shrinking, there's less marketing money being spent, and of course that trickles. It's just a trickle down effect. So Global shrinks its budget, UFC shrinks its budget, and it just shrinks. And that's, if you're a young Brazilian at the prime and trying to get in the UFC, it's a bad moment for you.
You know, now you're saying this. Now I think about it, I watch a lot of the Russian scene and what's going on over there, and they have a hard time getting anybody, fighter from any region to fly all the way over there to fight their tough guys. But it feels like this last year or so, I've seen an influx of Brazilians having to take these fights, maybe kind of attributing to what you're saying, that that's some of the only fights they can get, these tough market fights where they have to go halfway across the world to build themselves up right now.
This is true. The problem with Russia is that, you're talking about subjects I really know, okay? The problem with the Russia is that it's prohibitive, the cost of airfare from Brazil to Russia.
Ah.
And I sent Rosimar Palhares there 3 times now, and that's crazy because he doesn't speak English. Imagine how he gets along in Russia, and I can't go to Russia with him. It's too many. I got too many fights, so it's funny. Yeah, the Russian market, but Russia is Russia. It's different, completely different than any place in the world. The last fight with Bigfoot, they only gave him the return ticket on the night of the fight. I said, dude, what are you going to do? Keep him put him in a zoo? What are you guys going to do with him?
So in other words, it's hard for other markets to reach in if they even wanted to, feel the Brazilian market with some fights, some crossover. It's hard logistically.
It's difficult for the Brazilians to get out because, like in Russia, the Russians appreciate and hire them, but in Russia it's prohibitive because of the price of airfare. ONE FC they want Asian stars. They don't want Brazilian stars.
Right.
The UFC, it's like I explained. So that's.
But Cheetah Brothers don't have any younger brothers or nothing like that?
Yeah, I think, but they're fighting Bellator, right?
Oh, yeah. All right.
So it's a difficult moment it'll pass. I think the Brazilian economy will come back. There will be more shows, and it'll come back. Who does a good
job? What about
job?
Shudo? Every week we have to do these rankings, and I usually start the conversation off. So I have to go back and see every event that happened within the past 7 days. There's always a Shudo. It was either in Japan or Brazil.
Right.
A lot of them are in Brazil, and that's Day-Day's promotion.
Yeah.
And then there's either an FNG or an ACB in Russia. So Russia's a hot scene. Oh, and M1.
Yep.
But in Brazil, I'll see a few different ones. I haven't seen Jungle Fight in a while. But can you update us? Like, what happened to Shudo and Jungle Fight? I got used to seeing them, and they've actually. I mean, a lot of fighters have come through those promotions.
Yeah,
Jungle Fight. I think that's, of course, it's not my specialty.
Oh, it's your buddies, right?
But that event was.
They're done, right?
Well, the problem with that event is that it's based on public money, and right now with all the corruption scandals, you're not managing to get public money.
Yeah.
So he's taking a hit. Shoto is turning. I have to give it to Dede. He's growing his event until it's coming up until be a more solid event. It doesn't pay anything, but at least the guys get out there to be able to fight. Have a great event in Manaus, in the Amazon region where Aldo and Jacaré come from. Mr. Cage, that's doing some really good fights. I guess I'll have to put that on your radar. Have another event in southern Brazil called Áspera, which is it's getting some
I've heard
traction.
of that one, yeah.
But if you look at the business models and what they're doing now, for example, Aspera, they pay the guys in tickets, they don't pay airfare, they don't pay anything. In the beginning, I used to think that to pay the fighter in tickets, it's wrong. But now guess what? We're doing the same thing here. We just don't give them the tickets to sell. So that's part of the business. If you want to fight, you need to sell yourself. You need to be able to sell tickets. You need to be able to bring eyeballs to the sport. So now I don't see it as wrong. Mr. Cage is done by a friend of mine, and he pays him a ticket. And I always say, dude, you got to stop doing that. I say, Alex, I can't. The numbers don't match if I don't. So what he did is he did an open workout, and the kids sold all their tickets, came back for more. So it's actually starting to work both ways. Titans is doing that in Florida, and it works because guess what? Part of the fighter's, part of his success today is due to what he's able to sell. It's bottom line. So I didn't like that concept today. I accept it.
George brought up rankings, and he's the guy that does the rankings for MMA Junkie USA Today. As a manager, how often do you deal with rankings, and how often do they come up in negotiations? And just what are your overall thoughts? Because I know you wrote a piece on MMA Junkie about this.
Well, the piece I wrote on was more about not the ranking the fights and not the ranking system. The ranking system, to me, it's silly. I don't see anything. That ranking system. I mean, listen, you guys are serious journalists, okay? You guys know we can sit down here and talk all day about fighters and fights and everything, but you have this ranking system, and unfortunately, 80% of the MMA journalists today still are not at that point. But they're the ones making these rankings. So funny enough, you have guys that are not losing fights and they get dropped out of the rankings, and sometimes it's crazy. I asked Dana about it, and he said, well, that's done by journalists, and I can't control everything. It's a sorry part. I don't like the ranking system at all. I don't think anybody does. Public opinion does. It's all based on public opinion, which is not correct. If you look at from the entertainment side, yes, but from the sports side, not.
But Goes is asking you about the good rankings, the USA Today Sports MMA Junkie rankings, not the UFC rankings.
I don't really tell you what. I've taken this attitude with my fighters. I said, listen, guys, we need to fight and make money. And if we get title and go up in the rankings, that's going to be effective what you do. Okay, so I don't really, because it doesn't make sense, so I'm not paying attention to it. So
you're in Vegas. What, do you have anything to do with the finale?
No. I had Barboza's doing the HEED project for...
HEED?
Yeah, it's a sensor avatar thing.
He's here in Vegas?
Yeah, he's here.
Well, thanks for bringing him.
Yeah, well, he's got a fight coming up, so he's doing that and resting,
Okay. We actually had him on the show about a week ago.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
We had a great conversation. In fact, we got to find these YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
He says he's got some YouTube videos that he needed his buddy to take down because they're spectacular KOs. But either way, we were still, out there looking just to get a, just.
He has like 29 Muay Thai fights before he got in UFC. It was 29-3, something like that, and then 28 knockouts.
Yeah.
And Cowboy fights on Saturday. So then you're headed to Detroit.
Yeah, I'm headed to Detroit. That's it.
Busy times. You still love being a manager?
There's good days and bad days, like any job. I do it a little bit different than everybody else. Like I said, there's a human part to it, and since I'm concentrating on Brazilians and poor Brazilians and trying to bring them and help them, and there's everybody does things for a different reason. I'm not only into money and jingles and stuff like that.
So you wouldn't have been a good manager for Damian Maia, right? He's a playboy.
No, I love it. Actually,
that's just a joke. Anderson Silva called him Playboy, and I guess in Brazil, correct me if I'm wrong, a Playboy is someone that comes from money, right?
Yeah.
All right. So did Damian really come from money?
Yeah, not really. He's not super rich. He comes from probably a middle class.
But now he's built himself up, right?
Yeah,
the gym and everything.
Yeah, but
good for him.
He's a great guy.
He is.
And he always says that if Alonso didn't manage him, I'd be his manager. I love him. And it was funny because you tell the fight between Damon and Colby, Damon's always come up and hug me, and then Colby I have to help. It's an awkward, but they understand it, so it's good.
Yeah, I see you a lot out there, man. Sometimes you're right next to the matchmakers, and you're actually the one translating, not just on camera with the post fight, but sometimes you'll be there so that they can reference what's happening in between rounds. Will you have that role on Saturday?
Yeah. So what happened is that over the years I've done this. I've always been there to translate. Every time they need, Alex, please help me. Alex, please help me. And so it ended up turning into I'm the official translator here in the U.S. for the Octagon side.
Oh,
right?
nice. So all the shows you do.
Well, when it makes sense, when they need me, when
Yeah.
I'm not going there, and so it works for me because guess what? I get one of the best seats in the house. It's a little bit emotionally difficult when you have to translate Barboza's and Lineker's fight, but I've gotten good at it. But not only that, I think that I understand better what happens in that corner than anybody else because I've cornered and I've been in this, so I can really put the emphasis and excitement and say what's happening.
Yep.
Unfortunately, some of the things that the guy says are kind of silly, like breathe, breathe, breathe. What am I going to say? Invent something? Or they say, grab it, grab it. What am I going to say? And it hurts when I hear the commentaries about it, but I let it come in my ear and go out through my mouth and say it. I just don't say the curse words.
I have something to share about that. The other day, was it Shanghai? What was before Shanghai?
Shoot, Sydney?
Maybe Sydney.
Yeah.
Somebody admitted to a broken hand in round 1.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really matter, but if we think about it, great. But that fighter shared that there might be a broken hand.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder if we're going to get to the point, much like the Patriots, when they had the binoculars and they were allegedly, or I don't even know if it was official, stealing the signs, the coaching staff does, or whatever, signals, I don't know. And I wonder if we could be so technologically advanced, especially in a 5-round fight, maybe not a 3-round fight, and this one I believe was a 3-round fight, where if you share that, and someone's at home and says, hey, he just broke his right hand, you may not get it in time for the second round, but you'll get it in time between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and 4 and 5.
Brian Stan
you know
said Brian Stan has said even on commentary that he thinks he might have seen that guys on text messages in corners and referenced that. Have you ever seen anything like that, Alex?
No, I don't think that there's enough time to do that, but I think it's
Why wouldn't there be?
Well, I don't know, but it's definitely something to give thought. But let me put
if it's choreographed beforehand, like if you're cornering and I were to tell you, I'm going to be watching, just check your phone, and I say, so-and-so broken hand, and it's coming from me, I'm not bullshitting. Now, if I'm sitting there going, I got a secret, and you got to text me back, what is it? We don't have time for that. You see what I'm saying? But if we're on the same team, it could happen.
Yeah. Well, let me bring it a step forward.
Okay.
So we have this HEED project that Barboza and Mark D's are doing, right? Which is, do you know about that? Have you ever heard about it?
No.
They're going to put these sensors in the gloves where they're going to be able to dissect all the movements and the temperature and the heartbeats and how far and how much power and all this stuff, right?
Oh, is that why they determined that Ngannou punches the hardest? Is that?
Well, this is still technology that's still coming to the table, but this is enough. This is realistic. It can be done. They're going to be able to measure the movements and measure when at 2 minutes the guy kind of drops off and comes back. I mean, there's going to be some very, very, very important information coming out of this, and if it gets into your opponent's hands, he can really use that. So this kind of information can really affect a fight. And I was talking about it. I said, listen, well, who's going to keep this information? Because you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to send it to Uzada because it can't be in anybody else's hands because it'll end up affecting fights.
Growth of information. It's a two-way street, right? Essentially is what we're talking about. Yeah, that's a two-way street.
Think about professional football. Back in the day, you may have had a playbook, and that was about it. Yeah. And now the way they're communicating from the top to the coach, a few years ago, about 15 years ago, maybe 20, the coach could communicate to the quarterback. He's limited to about, I think 10 seconds before the ball's hiked. That's when they cut it off.
Even less.
Right. And if one team if theirs isn't working, the other team also has to do it. So the games advance so much, and we're in the leather helmet stages of our sport. Imagine as we go forward, some of these things we're talking about, it's not going to be so crazy of a thought.
Well, I just worry that the information seeps to the wrong hands. Like, you have somebody that has access to information, that has a friend that's a friend of a guy that's going to fight. Think about what could happen. So that gives an unfair advantage. That's what I'm worried about.
Can you imagine the stats on a guy like Edson Barboza doing those type of movements? We were talking yesterday about some of the most lethal attacks in MMA where a fighter would go, the last thing I want to see is a Jose Aldo leg kick or an Edson Barboza. I know you've taken a few leg kicks in your day. So tell us, where Edson ranks, but then can you tell the Marco Huas one too?
Yeah,
Okay.
hold on to that, Alex. We're going to take a break. We got to take a break. When we come back, Alex Davis will share these leg kick stories. You've already heard them, Goes?
He told me one about Marco Huas.
All right, he's got some good ones. All right, Alex Davis, MMA manager here in studio with us. I heard something about he can only stay 1 hour. I'm going to go to work on that right now. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93.
to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been, and because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Help SiriusXM in the fight to end hunger. Support Why Hunger's annual Hungerthon by visiting SiriusXM.com/Hungerthon to bid on items like the opportunity to spend a day at the NFL training camp with SiriusXM NFL Radio. You can also make a donation and receive a free gift like a Bruce Springsteen Land of Hope and Dreams t-shirt and more. All right, it's MMA Junkie Radio, early edition here. And we warned you. We gave you plenty of warnings. We'll be talking about UFC 218 in the second hour. This first hour, we're joined by Alex Davis, who, before the commercial, told us he was going to share some good leg kick stories. Yeah. And by the way, if you have any street fight stories, we like those too.
Yeah, I know.
All right, go ahead. Let's hear the leg kick stories.
So
which one's first? Ruas or who was the other one? Junior?
Marco. I got involved in MMA because of Marco Ruas. Okay, because I'm a judo guy, and I didn't like MMA. I didn't want to get involved with it and everything. But since I'm so Brazilian American, when I came to the States, a friend of mine, a judo partner of mine, introduced me to Marco. And when I came to the States, Marco said, "Listen, come to the States too. Can help me out, give me seminars and everything." So I got him a seminar in Coral Springs, Florida, right? And at that time, Marco couldn't speak English, and Marco was all sweated and tense. You know, he has a big crowd. He was a big star at those times, and he never done a seminar. So he says, "Alex, stand in front of me because I'm going to show a leg kick." So stupid me, I'd never been leg kicked in my life, you know. Stand in front of him, and he goes in, wham! And he kicks my leg so hard, I never felt anything like it. And I said, "Marco, what's the matter with you? You crazy?" He says, "Oh, Alex, I'm sorry I went too hard, but stand again and I'll go easy." And wham! I couldn't walk for 2 weeks, man. My whole thigh, because I first of all, I had both feet firm on the ground. I didn't know anything about kicks. Dude, I tell you, there's nothing more painful than that. And I'm allergic to leg kicks until this very day. So Edson Barboza and Marlon Moraes' coach is my son-in-law. So when we're in a barbecue and something, he comes up and we start messing around, he comes with those leg kicks, I immediately take him down. I don't wait 1 second on him. Yeah, whatever it is. The moment he brings up his leg, he's going down, man. I ain't taking one of those leg kicks ever again in my life. That hurts because when it hits the thigh, it ruptures vessels in your thigh and it starts swelling. Dude, it hurts. Wow. I would have never. I could have never imagined how much a leg kick hurts, and if I hadn't actually experienced one from Marco.
How about the ones from the people are aiming for the calf now and debilitating a nerve? You know, where did you see the Chandler fight, Michael Chandler and Bellator?
Yeah.
You know, he lost usage of.
That was a little bit different there. He actually twisted his ankle, but.
No, he claims to us that it came back and he could walk fine. There was no sprain. There was no break.
Yeah, the next day
it was basically flopping. Yeah. It just flopped. And he said he would go to step and. Yeah,
I saw the fight.
You know, so the nerve was attacked.
I saw the fight.
Well, Primus was saying it's because of the kick that he did the roll with his ankle. But yeah, it seems like that's kind of like the new flavor of the month with moves in mixed martial arts.
You know, who was the judge, the famous judge that said, "Oh, leg kicks don't end
Cecil
fights"?
Peoples?
Yeah. Dude, I tell you right now, man, they end fights for sure. That hurts a lot. If you're not accustomed to them and you don't know how to check them, dude, you'll have your leg chucked up in no time.
To this day, one could argue that Ruas' stoppage of Paul Varlins is one of the more famous stoppages. I mean, there's been more since then. Justin Gaethje, who fights this weekend, Jose Aldo, who fights this weekend, both have stopped fights.
Edson stopped fights.
Edson Barboza, yeah. But, you know, I think on the map had to be Marco Ruas, right? Versus Paul Varlins. What was that, UFC 8 or something like that?
He had that golf ball size knot on his leg.
Yeah, chopped him down.
Dude, Varlins was very tough. I took 2 of those and I couldn't walk.
The polar bear.
Yeah.
Trap fighting was his specialty.
Trap fighting. He was from Alaska or something like that. Yeah. Did you watch the UFC back in those days?
Yeah, I was here. I was in California training judo when the UFC came up, when the first 2 UFCs happened, and I could have gone, and I didn't even want to go because.
How old were you? How old are you now?
I'm 55 now.
55. The UFC's been around 24 years?
Yeah.
2000 or 93.
Yeah.
So 26.
Yeah, my first
Why'd you do
UFC.
it?
My first UFC was UFC 19. I watched Pat Miletich fight André Pederneiras and Pedro Ruiz fought Trey Telligman. Brad Kohler fought Steve Judson.
All right, let's see here.
Pederneiras, man, yeah.
So if you fought Hoist Gracie, being the judo player that you are, could he have submitted you?
Listen, I'm not. I've never, because when I started judo, I couldn't go to jiu-jitsu schools because the jiu-jitsu guys were invading all the martial arts schools, and I had a sponsorship from the Bank of Brazil, and you couldn't. They
Banco
caught
do
you in
Brasil.
jiu-jitsu. If you caught you in a jiu-jitsu school, they ended the sponsorship. But I will tell you something though. If they would have put not me, but a good judoka against Royce, he would have got an ass whip.
What about you?
Nah, well, I don't know. I'm not that good on the ground.
Okay.
I'm not that.
Could you have beaten Patrick Smith, the Taekwondo guy?
No, I don't know. I fought a lot in the
Art
streets.
Jimerson, the guy with the one glove, boxer?
I never tried myself in an MMA
Come on, Alex,
fight.
just say you could have beat one of them.
Well,
Make it fun.
Yeah, I'm a good fighter, but it's not. You know, it's funny.
I think you would have beat up Art Jimerson.
I don't know, man.
One glove, two gloves, no gloves. I think you get them.
If I would have been into it and trained for it, I would have been good at it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to punch somebody I wasn't mad at.
What about Christoph Lindinger? He was one of the first judokas, right, early on.
Yeah.
Could he have done that?
He was not, and nothing against him. I've watched him fight judo very much. He was not as technical, and the problem with Royce is that for a judoka to beat him, it would have had to been somebody really versed in groundwork. What happened was, in the beginning, when actually jiu-jitsu was judo, right? And so the people were good on the mat and good standing up. But as they started to tailor judo for TV, they started not giving a lot of attention to the mat work. So a lot of judokas like myself weren't very good at mat work. I only started doing jiu-jitsu later on when I partnered with Rodrigo Nogueira, and I had a school with him. That's when at 34, 35, that's where I started doing groundwork. And today I'm decent. Mm-hmm. But but there are a lot of good Newaza ground. Yeah. There are a lot of good people, and I'm sure that they could have got a lot of good guys, especially with the Guion, that would have given Royce a very, very hard time.
For judokas later on in their careers, the injuries that they have are like their shoulders, I hear, right, really get banged up, and I think, is it their hands?
Knees, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
everything.
Case by case, you know. I mean, I was very fortunate because I learned judo from Japanese. There was a lot of emphasis to the falling, and so I'm really good at falling. And I maybe I didn't get as injured. And then later on, I raced professional motocross, and I'm not as injured as some guys. But you know, when you twist things, and the shoulder's the most complicated joint in your body. If you bang it bad and you just separate and you rip your rotator cuff, it's a complicated injury for any sports, any athlete.
I'll tell you, judokas are some of the hardest guys I've ever trained with personally, and maybe Alex didn't get as much injuries because of this. You know, he's a sizable guy. You're not a small guy, and we had a Brazilian judoka that I got the pleasure to train with, Extreme Couture, Rodrigo Artillery. I can't remember. Artillery. I figured you saved me there on that one, but I would just cower if he ever used me for the demos. I just did not.
He's high level. That guy's high level. But I have lots of fun doing judo with jiu-jitsu guys. You know, I have lots of fun. You know, I have fun. I still train. I train hard at ATT. I still train. I trained yesterday with Leandro, who is the owner of Vanderlei School here, which is really, really good. We had it out, and I ended up ripping my groin muscle.
Oof.
Yeah.
Would you have beaten Taylor Tui?
I don't know who he is.
That was the guy that got his tooth knocked out by Gerard Gordeau. It was the first fight of UFC 1. Well, if you toss out the alternate bout, it was the first fight.
Listen, I've asked myself this question many times because I've fought all my life. But like I said, I never looked at MMA and thought it was something like I wanted to do because I never wanted to fight somebody that I wasn't mad at. But if I would have trained for it, I probably would have been decent.
That's what I wanted to hear. All right, we're going to take our last break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. When we come back, we'll ask Alex about his ranking system. Alex, from time to time, does publish stories on MMA Junkie, giving us his viewpoints of how he sees the sport through the lens of a manager. So we'll discuss that when we come back. Stay close. We'll be right back.
charm, compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Your favorite holiday music channels are back on SiriusXM. Check out contemporary holiday favorites on Holly Channel 70 and holiday traditions on Channel 4. You can get our complete holiday lineup, at SiriusXM.com/holiday. Alex Davis joining us here in studio. Alex, tell us about the ranking system that you want to apply to the fights that take place.
Well, okay, so what happens in MMA today is that the losses are too expensive for the fighters. Everybody's going to lose. I don't care how good your fighter you are. At some point, you're going to lose once or lose twice. And what happens is that it really has a more negative effect on these guys' careers than it should, in my view. What happens is that everybody wants to see exciting fights, right? And so two guys go out there and they have it out, and it's a great fight. It goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, baby. Ah! But once the fight's over and it was a split decision, one of them loses, it goes down in the books as a loss. So my suggestion is, why don't we rank the fights? A very simple system: 1, 2, 3, 4. So a 1 is a sleeper, a 2 is a fight, a 3 is a good fight, and a 4 is an amazing fight. So even if this guy he's coming off 2 losses, but they're 2 grade 4 losses, or if he's got a record that's up and down, like today they tell him there's a tourist. No, he loses fights, but they're all grade 4 fights. So you know that guy goes out to bang. He goes out there to fight.
How does that benefit him?
It shows that he's a guy that listen. You can have a guy that has 10 wins.
Right.
All he does is hold the guy against the cage.
Right.
Right.
Well, let's say Dan beats Goes, but it was a great fight. So he collects his bonus. Goes doesn't, but he's got a 4 next to him. How does that help him? Does it help him after maybe his contract's up? His promoter sees he's an exciting fighter,
Absolutely.
or is that what you're looking for?
Absolutely,
I got
because now they're going to look at Guazinho here and they're going to say, "Man, he lost, but look at his losses. They're all grade 4 losses. This guy comes to fight." So it's going to take a little bit. We're punishing the fighters for taking risks.
But who's going to want to promote Brazilian sperm on their next card?
No.
Isn't that what Gozinho is?
It's
small
little
Brazilian
sperm.
Little sperm. Okay.
Yeah, little sperm.
But he's a grade 4 fighter. All his fights are grade 4. I back him up. I don't have anything to do with the sperm stuff, but I back him up. Okay.
Plus, obviously, I'm a finisher, right?
Well, that's another point. Everybody wants finishers, but you have 2 guys that are going out and trying to finish each other. It's going to be a grade 4 fight. So the real problem is that we're punishing guys to take risks, and then we complain when people fight smart. There's a conflict here, and I think that if we'd rank these fights, and I put it out and it didn't get a lot of traction, all the professionals love the idea. The public didn't get the idea. Oh, he's a manager. No, it's nothing to do with that. We want exciting fights, but when people go out there and put exciting fights on and take the risk, we punish them for it.
When I hear this, I like it because it speaks to the climate of today, where you hear a lot of fighters say, well, why can't I promote myself with the way I fight? I promote myself with my fists. And now we get to the point where we're criticizing these fighters for that. That kind of feeds into
that's absolutely
bigger
true.
thing.
All right, let me jump in here. It's the end of the first hour. We've talked Alex into sharing another 15 minutes of his time in the second hour. So hopefully we'll coax one more street fight story out of him, or a leg kick story. I don't know. But he's got dandies. I've hung out with this guy. He is a treasure. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM, Rush 93. Here we go. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. We have Alex Davis joining us here in studio. Manager to John Lineker, Alex Oliveira, Edson Barbosa, amongst others. Alex, Edson Barbosa is, I mean, we tried to ask him, but he's focused in on Khabib Nurmagomedov. And what have you been hearing? Have they told you, you know, I mean, Khabib and Ferguson, that might happen, which would derail Barbosa's plan? Have you heard any of that, or is that just all more gym talk?
No, where he's fighting Khabib.
Okay.
No, that's
not changing.
I mean, why would Ferguson accept the fight against Khabib? He's gunning for McGregor right
exactly.
now. Well, Edson's fighting Khabib. I think that's the fight to make. I think that whoever wins that fight or fights Ferguson or fights whoever wins between Ferguson and Conor. I think that's the correct way to do it. Who knows? Because we have Eddie and Justin coming up, and you know how these things go. But in the scheme of things, I think that's probably the most logical way of things working out.
Is Shoeface one of your guys?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Sometimes I can't tell if you're in there to translate or if you're just part of the team.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
That guy, man, he's, you know, I know he struggled in that fight in Australia, but then there's some times where he looks like, wow, he's just a few fights away from really contending, you know, much like how Brunson has made his move and a few of the other guys.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy, amazing fighter. Somehow we're not getting as much traction as we want with him, and we're working on it right now. It's an ongoing battle between me and Mick. Mick says, Alex, don't talk about Shoeface. I say, Shoeface. He's a great kid. He's a really good fighter, you know.
Great grappler.
And he deserves more attention than he's getting.
Shoeface helped Colby prepare for Damian.
Yes.
So how did Shoeface, for example, take the filthy animal? Like, is he one of the guys that said, oh, that's just Colby, being that he was so close to him? Or would that come back to haunt Colby when he comes back to ATT, as far as Brazilians maybe saying, hey, man, you know,
I don't think Shoeface is going to really get involved in that stuff. It's a teammate, and we're there to help the guys. And Shoeface is a very educated kid. I don't think he's going to take it, you know. It's like Dan said. I mean, here in the gym, I don't want to hear about it. You're all teammates. You got to work together, train with each other, and I don't want to hear arguments or fighting. And that's a very good position to take, right?
Were you, by any chance, the guy that nicknamed him Shoeface?
No, I wasn't, but that's a funny nickname. I've always wondered how he come up with
it. It is, yeah. Like, what goes down in Brazil with some of these nicknames?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. There's another kid they call him Full of Grace. Full of Grace. Can you imagine that? The Brazilians are the best at nicknames.
Yeah. Babalu's chewing gum, right? Or bubble gum?
Babalu, but Babalu used to be fat. That's why they call him Babalu. I know about that one.
But doesn't Babalu mean bubble gum?
Yeah.
So bubblegum made him fat, or he always had bubblegum?
Like bubblegum, something like that. Or look at Rodrigo and Rogério. They used to call him the anchor and the turtle. They couldn't get any place on time.
Oh, dude, you got to tell the story about. You told me this one. You told a group of us in Sacramento. I asked Alex, why do Brazilians always run late? And he says, I don't know. We just, I guess it's culture or who knows what. But if I got this straight, and hopefully you can fill it in, he told a story once of Rodrigo Nogueira was supposed to do a seminar in Rio. And so let's say the seminar started at 2 p.m. Mm-hmm. I guess they were getting close, and Alex said, where you at? Just making sure this thing's going to start. And Rodrigo tells him, I'm on my way, right? So you're probably thinking, all right, he's on his way. It'll probably start at 3, whatever. If I'm not mistaken, Alex, he hadn't even boarded the plane in the other city.
That was I was supposed to meet.
Tell the story. I probably butchered it.
I was supposed to meet him at Luis Alves, the late Luis Alves, which was my Thai coach, and we set up a meeting that we were going to meet him there. So I go with Luis Alves and I meet him in the school. Where's Rodrigo? Oh, Rodrigo's on his way, cool, and he's taking his time. So we go out and have lunch. Ah, Rodrigo's coming. Okay, man. We go out and have lunch, and then it's 4 or 5 hours, and Luis calls Rodrigo, you're coming. Where are you on? I'm boarding the plane in Salvador. It's an hour and a half. Rodrigo, the other day, I was on the plane, and Rodrigo comes in all disheveled and looking sleepy. I say, Rodrigo, you're on the wrong plane, and he starts going back out of the plane. I tell you, the other day he asked me to
That's true? He was on the wrong plane? Or was
No,
that,
it was.
Or is that a joke?
He thought he was still sleeping. He thought I was telling the truth, and he thought he boarded the wrong plane.
Wow, okay.
And the other day he asked me to go to the bank with him. I said, dude, no, I don't want to. No, come on, please, come on. I don't want to. I spent 7 hours in the bank with him. Everything he does.
Are you guys casing it?
I got a funny story. I got a funny story here. Who everybody knows Eric Albarracin, right?
Yeah. The guy with the glasses.
That's right.
Right.
So I'm sitting at the UFC in Rio, and the internet goes out in the rooms, and I have to come down to the lobby. It's like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I have to work, and I'm working. I feel a presence behind me. And I turn around. There's Eric, and Eric is like he's just come off the beach, and he's still sandy and salty, and he's got a T-shirt on. And
at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the lobby of the Sheraton. I said, Eric, what's up? He said, well, and I said, Eric, what's the matter? He said, well, can't you know what? I said, Eric, come out with it. Rodrigo. I said, what happened, Rodrigo? I left my cell phone, my wallet in his car, and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and he disappeared. And then I said, really? And I have the Nextel radio. I call Rodrigo.
You still have Nextel?
Yeah, no, in those days.
I was going to say.
I called Rodrigo. Eric's here. What he said he's got your cell phone in his wallet, and he's here. He's still in his beach clothing. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And Rodrigo, I forgot him. So Rodrigo comes back and picks him up, and Rodrigo says, no, we're going to go have coffee at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was when he fought
Shop.
Yeah, in Rio. And so we had coffee at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I didn't know Eric very well, and I didn't know about him. Then I started to find out that he was Cejudo's coach, and he'd been a captain in the Army. And I said, Rodrigo, you're killing this guy, man. This guy's structured and a smart and a military guy, and this is what you do to him. He comes all the way to Brazil, and this is how you treat him. He said, ha. You don't want to hear the last. I said, well, what happened? Well, I forgot him at my house, and he used all my clothing because he ran out of clothing. I imagine Eric using, Tyler's clothing.
Right. Why were you in a bank for 7 hours?
Everything that you get involved in with Rodrigo is everything. Anything you do with him. Today he's a lot better now. He's gotten a lot better. But anything that his best phrase was, I
could buy a house in 7 hours.
His best phrase was, hey, just a minute. Just a minute. Just a minute. It's always him and his brother have always been like that. When science came out and said that human beings had crossed with Neanderthals, I said, I knew it. I
mean, think about it. Most work days are 8-hour days, right? That person helped him. That was his only customer that whole day.
He didn't break for lunch or nothing, or
anything that Rodrigo touches or gets involved with, it all is all tangled up and jumbled up, and it's always a problem. I love him to pieces, but I could tell you.
But if Rodrigo was out there and he said, hey, I need you to come with me, you wouldn't go. You'd decline?
I'd ask. First of all, I have a questionnaire he has to fill out.
Right.
Because I've gotten involved with so many things. At the last minute, he always asks me for help with things, and I don't deny the help. And I could talk the whole day about stories like that because it's funny.
You got any street fight stories to share?
Street fight, not really, but I have a funny one from Bigfoot in Japan if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard that, right, guys?
No.
You have the better memory.
You haven't heard this one. So the first fight I go with Japan with Bigfoot, and I want to be the incisive and decisive manager and fill in my role, and the Japanese are doing their production meeting with him. They say it's Bigfoot against Tom Erickson, and the producer says, Bigfoot, I want you to say, Bigfoot, I want you to I'm going to take you down with my strength of a gorilla. I said, stop. I do not want my fighter compared to a monkey. This is and the Japanese say, oh, so sorry. And when they apologize, they bow and they walk backwards. Oh, so sorry. Oh no, so sorry. So I said, you see, Bigfoot, that's the way a manager has to be. I'm not going to let you be compared to a monkey. That's his bullshit. Blah blah. So the fight happens, and Bigfoot beats Tom Erickson, and we get in the bus, and the fight's on delayed tape in Japan, and Bigfoot's fight comes up, and the very first image they have is a big gorilla. And I said, you can't believe it. So I come into the hotel, and the first guy I see is Ishii, president of K1. I said, Ishii, Didn't I say I didn't want my fighter compared to a monkey? What's the matter with you? Oh, so sorry. But it came out good. Came out very good. Was very good. And then we found out that the gorilla in Japan is a noble animal because Bigfoot was pissed off for a while. But we found out that it's a noble animal, and he was really being made look good. I don't know how it could be.
Damn.
And we still call him because he said, Erickson, I'm going to take you with my strength of a gorilla. And we say, Erickson, I'm going to take you. I'm ugly as a gorilla.
Oh, wow.
Not a fight story. I know.
Yeah, I was going to say, the street fight didn't come out. This one.
The street fights, there's so many of them, man. I can't. I know the one you want. You'll get it someday.
Really? You still not ready?
I'm not ready for that. it would create, if I kind of started this, it'd create a major world war, which I'm not ready for.
Okay, I'm just going to throw out some things, and let's see if it jars your memory.
Uh-huh.
How about a beach in Brazil? You ever been in a street fight in a beach in Brazil?
I was actually at the beach when
Hugo Duarte and Hickson Gracie?
Hickson fought.
Yeah. No shit.
I was there, but listen, I saw the fight starting to happen, and I was with my two daughters. They were young kids, and I just walked away and said, dude, these guys are crazy. They're going to start fighting. Let's move away from this shit.
That was a luta libre versus Gracie jiu-jitsu type of rivalry.
So I didn't see I saw them, and I saw the whole confusion and everything, but it wasn't my thing. I wasn't into fighting with. I was a judo guy. I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wasn't into that was actually the second resurgence of MMA was at that time, and it was happening right around me. But I wasn't interested in it. I was supposed to go to the first luta libre versus jiu-jitsu happened in the clube. I don't remember the name of the club on the street.
Helpy?
Huh?
Helpy?
No, not Helpy. Come on. But it happened right down the street where I was trained. I had tickets and I didn't go. And then when Eugenio Tadeu fought Renzo Gracie and they turned off the lights, that stopped.
Oh, didn't someone get stabbed?
That stopped MMA for 7 years in Rio. And
wow.
I managed the bank branch right across the street from the club where that happened, and I know all about what happened. I know I got the employees of the club were my clients, and they came next morning and told me all about it, and I could have gone to that fight, but just wasn't. I wasn't into
Renzo Gracie versus Eugenio Tadeu.
Eugenio Tadeu.
And it was a luta libre Gracie rivalry or jiu-jitsu rivalry.
Yeah.
And lights go off and a stabbing took place, right?
That's right.
Okay.
They stabbed somebody through the cage and chairs flew all over the place. And funny,
where were you at that time?
I managed the bank branch right across the street from the.
Oh, you weren't at the fight?
No, I wasn't at the fight.
Okay.
But so I used to teach judo near where I lived, and one day one of my judo students bring this Eugenio Tadeu to my apartment, and Eugenio Tadeu wants to invite me to go help them fight somebody from this guy Marco Ruiz. I don't even know who these guys are. I said, dude, listen, I'm a bank manager. I have kids. I don't get involved with these things. And then later on, was I to find out who Marco Ruiz was, and I became his friend. But it was all happening around me, but I wasn't. I had a good name. I had a sponsorship. I wanted to go to the Olympics in judo.
How about Maracanã? You ever anything go down there?
Yeah, I've seen some crazy
Because in
stuff.
summary, you were at a beach where a fight took place, but you didn't see it. And a stabbing took place at another event, but you were in a bank.
Yeah, these things were happening around me.
I want to hear you mixing it up, man.
Yeah.
Maracanã, nothing? You didn't judo throw anybody?
you don't go try to fight Maracanã.
I've seen them. I've seen Flamingo and Fluminense going at it.
Those are crazy.
You weren't an ultra back in the day?
No, you don't want to get involved
Who's your
in those things. Flamengo.
Flamengo?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't want to.
That's Jose's team, right? Isn't Jose?
Yeah.
Flamengo?
That's Flamengo.
Dude, those Vasco, Fluminense, Flamingo, and Botafogo.
Yeah.
When any of those four play, Maracanã is just on fire.
Yeah.
And no, the moat's gone. He's talking about the stadium. It used to actually have a moat, but when they reconditioned it for the Olympics and the World Cup, they took it away.
Yeah, but then
that's when it seated almost 200,000.
It deteriorated now. It's been all people have stolen the seats, and it's a sorry story, man.
But you were never an ultra slash.
No, I never. That's not the type of fighting I got. My problem was that I started fighting in Brazil because I got to Brazil. Although I was born in Brazil, I couldn't speak Portuguese, and as a kid, I got back to Brazil as a teenager, and people started poking fun at me, and I could tell they were poking fun, but I didn't know what they were saying, so I ended up fighting them. And Brazilians they're ruthless when it comes to that kind of stuff. So all my childhood, I fought and fought and fought, when I was a kid, because of that kind of thing. Then Brazilians have a bad habit of messing with pretty girls, and I would always have a pretty girlfriend, and people would mess with them, and I'd get in fights because of that stuff, But I always had a reason to fight. MMA, I never. To me, I can't fight somebody. I have to be mad at him. I never considered doing MMA because I didn't. But 50,000 years ago, there was a part of our society that defended us against the saber-toothed tiger and the other tribes. And it's these guys that are up here fighting. They have it in them. You can, in the girls and in the men, you can see it. They have an urge to go and do it. They like it. They enjoy it.
I'd be a saber-toothed tiger's lunch.
Everybody has their...
Tobias Boonenberg says something was held at the Tijuca Tennis Club.
That's it, Tijuca Tennis Club. That was where Renzo fought. And say, hey, Tobias, big hug. Wie geht's dir? Wunderbar.
He's promoting Pentagon Combat, and he also he'd when I mentioned Club Helpy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tobias.
Help is out of.
Tobias has been there, right? If he's laughing
Tobias
along.
is a great guy.
You've been there
really
too,
good.
right, Alex? Or
no,
never.
No.
Okay.
I've been to other places, not there.
Like
Centaurus?
Listen,
I was
Let's change the subject.
Yeah.
We don't want to get ourselves in trouble here. And then the last thing here, you asked something about what was the name? Was it gentleman Matt Davies?
Oh yeah.
Okay. A comment from him said, unfortunately, the flow-on effects from his actions hurt the sport in other regions. Oh, I think he's talking about Verdum. MMA already has major struggles in Australia, and the fact that himself and Verdum... No, he's talking about Colby, sorry. That himself and Verdum got into it in Sydney with criminal charges being pressed and the national news outlets picking up the assault in the hotel. It gives the powers to be more ammunition to push back. And let me just say...
That's true. He has a good point.
I asked Dana to retell the story of Overeem. Him and Overeem didn't get along at first. Right. And Overeem sat in his lobby for about 8 hours before Dana had the meeting with him. And he says they click. But Dana said in the meeting yesterday, and they published the whole video, so it's there. He goes, right now, me and Verdum aren't clicking. So Verdum is, I think, traveling to Vegas, and hopefully this gets sorted out.
Well, that's because of business. It's not because of anything personal.
Well, the thing with Ferguson, now the thing with Colby, and
Verdum, you're saying.
Verdum,
not Overeem. Verdum.
No, Overeem, he loves them. They're good.
Verdum.
I know you have to get going. You have Edson Barbosa to
Cicerone and take places and do that stuff.
The driver, yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for stopping by. This has been a blast.
I love you guys.
As always.
I love talking. I hope that people appreciate. I have a lot of. I need to write. I need to get all this stuff that's inside me out. Every time I tell a story, I remember another 4 or 5 that people want to hear, and we could go just Bigfoot and Nogueira. We could go on a whole day about it. You got to remind me because I got more stories about Nogueira.
All right. Good luck to Mr. Alex Oliveira.
Yeah,
and that's the only one you got, right? This weekend
for Detroit. Yes.
All right. So good luck to him. And safe travels to Detroit, and we'll see you soon. When's your next time in Vegas?
I'll be here on the weekend of the 30th. If you want me back, I'll come
2
back.
hours, co-host?
If you plan, I'll come 2 hours, okay?
All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. When we come back, we will break down UFC 218, make our final predictions, share some parlays, all the good stuff. We'll be right back.
They can drink Mentos-flavored Diet Coke without their stomachs giving a single fuck. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Help SiriusXM in the fight to end hunger. Support Why Hunger's annual Hungerthon by visiting SiriusXM.com/Hungerthon to bid on items like the opportunity to spend a day at an NFL training camp with SiriusXM NFL Radio. You can also make a donation and receive a free gift like a Bruce Springsteen Land of Hope and Dreams t-shirt and more. All right, we are, but we don't have much time left, right?
Well, I thought we go till 10:30, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, Dan publishes his predictions. We also threw out some video earlier this week, so we'll try and get to some of it. But I still believe that what happened yesterday at the UFC office was pretty big. So I'm going to throw out the headlines, and if you guys want to touch on it, great. If not, we'll move on.
Okay.
Because the writers, the videographers did a great job of just putting it there anyway.
Yeah.
Dana White contradicts manager, meaning Adi Attar, who said Conor McGregor lost the fight for the Bellator melee. Excuse me. What Adi Attar said was that no fight had been offered. Dana White says a fight was being worked on, but because of the melee, right?
Yeah,
Melee. The UFC, as part of their punishment, elected to say, you know what, we're taking that away from you.
Okay.
Now, granted, a lot of eyebrows are being raised here. I get it. But I don't think Dana White's saying that's the final punishment. In fact, he actually touched on this topic and said, look, he's got his own issues to deal with ABC and eventually the commissions. But, yes, that was taken away because of the Bellator melee. Any thoughts? Or?
Yeah. Isn't that what we talked about when we said everything that's going to come out of this is just going to sound silly because the UFC could say, well, we know he's not fighting till this month, so let's give him that suspension. This seems like one of those type of things. Why don't we make it sound like we're really hurting the kid? He really wanted to fight, but we had to pull it back because of what he did. Come on, man. I mean, I seriously doubt that's the case. That's a lot of money. Conor McGregor represents a lot of money, and I feel like he's the one guy that they're just going to bend over backwards to get a fight. I don't think they would pull a fight just because of that.
Yeah, I agree. We were just talking about this, and not only do I agree, but what does that say, the fact that we're able to kind of predict these things, as the great Conor McGregor would say, that as far as, how they're going to handle him at this point. I mean, it's kind of getting to that point where we can almost predict, the soft hand or the soft punishment, whatever way you want to phrase that. So, yeah.
But the three of us, if we ran the UFC, we'd do the same shit, wouldn't we?
I think so.
Hard to say.
It's business.
Yeah.
It's business. One point Dana White said was a lot of their decisions are based on money. He goes, I have to remind you that why we're here is to make money. He goes, I'm sure a lot of you here also are involved in the sport, but you care about, the money you make or whatever. And it's so true. In fact, that's going to bleed over to a post with a listener named Ames Howard from the Texas area. He's always bitching that I'm bitching at his Cowboys. So I have to assume he's from that area. But he was stating, his comment was more along the lines of, everything going around with Conor, just that Conor's a guy that was serviced by the UFC. And I told him, I'm with you. He did have, the UFC did provide assistance for him to rise to the superstar that he became. Now, that said, and I've said this many times, when he did fight the champions, he fucked them up. Let's go back to featherweight. Yes, he avoided Lamas and Mendez and Edgar. And by Mendez, I mean full camp Mendez, because he still fought Mendez. But Mendez was having success until he ran out of gas, but also Conor kicked his belly. Regardless, he fought Mendez and beat him. But the whole point was, what happened to Edgar when he fought Aldo? He lost. What happened to Mendez when he fought Aldo? He lost. What happened to Lamas when he fought Aldo? He lost. What happened to Edgar and Mendez the second times? They both lost. So even though he didn't have to go through them, he started to go through Brandao in his second fight. That's a tough second fight. Holloway, I think, was his third fight. That's a tough third fight. It's not the Holloway we know now, but it's still a tough fight.
Right.
Dustin Poirier, he was no joke. Right? And then you get to, of course, Mendez, and eventually he fought Aldo and beat him in 13 seconds. You have to tip your hat. Then he told me, well, what happened at lightweight? Why did he avoid Khabib and Ferguson? Because he wanted to be a champion, a dual champion. He basically would have had to fight Ferguson and beat him, come back and defend. Fight Khabib and defeat him, come back and defend. Fight whoever else. You know, he wasn't going to do that. He wanted to be a simultaneous champion. And the fact that he said, give me RDA, that meant a lot about 2 years ago. RDA was a fucking beast. RDA didn't show up to the party, if you recall. That's why he took on Nate Diaz. Now his point was, well, why didn't he take on Cowboy? Man, I don't know. Yeah, I guess Cowboy was more in shape than Nate Diaz. But again, that goes to my point of, yes, he was provided assistance from the UFC. And Dana White even said it around the time of the Mayweather-McGregor fight. That build-up, he said, we have a superstar here, and it was our job to promote him and guide him through and manage him, you know, on his way to superstardom. Could they have made it tougher? Sure, but when you got a bottle rocket like that, you know what I mean? Like you said, Goes, if we were on that side, we may have done the same thing. Because this guy was making that company money hand over fist, gaining fans, gaining traction, mainstream media, especially when Ronda was starting to fade out. Why wouldn't you back your guy? Why would you throw the hardest obstacles at him when it's a sport that you can kind of dictate and control exactly what's going on? Now, the purists will say, well, no, the road to the title, I get you, man, I get you. That's why I said the UFC provided assistance. But at the same time, let's not forget that Poirier is a tough fighter. Aldo's a tough fighter. Mendez on 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever, that's still a tough fight. Holloway was thrown at him at some point. He asked for RDA. He came back and beat Nate Diaz after getting submitted by Nate Diaz. And then he still beat Eddie Alvarez. Well, so, yeah, Khabib and Tony, I get that. I get he's never had a title defense, not even at Cage Warriors nor in the UFC. I get that. And that's why we're not ready to say GOAT or anything like that. We just say, wow, what he's done is remarkable, being a dual champion, and they've already taken the other belt away, so he's really only the lightweight champion. And hell, that belt may be taken away with the troubles he's getting into, the time away from, you know, the actual Alvarez fight. So nobody's putting him on any Mount Rushmore just yet. But as far as popularity and high grossing, you got to give him that.
I think the Chad Mendes fight, don't get it twisted. Like, if that's the plan of the brass of the UFC, Zuffa at the time, they were probably pretty nervous for that fight.
Yeah.
Even with a Chad Mendes on 2-3 weeks notice, that's still a really bad matchup for Conor at that time. So I don't think they were sitting there going, yes, we pulled another one off. I think they sat and thought, this is probably a good scenario for you, as good as it's going to get. But they were probably nervous that night.
Yeah, no doubt. And watch Notorious, by the way. I didn't watch the other half. I plan on watching it on the plane. But Conor did have some knee troubles. Now, either that or they went through the whole trouble of faking these injuries, these rehabs. Have you seen it yet?
No.
Have you seen it yet?
No, negative.
Wait till you check out the lead up to UFC 189, and Conor also having every right to just go, I'll pull out. But the reason he didn't, I think, is because he understood that a lot of these Irish buy these packages, and they're expecting to see their guy fight. And he pushed through it, and I wouldn't say he was back to 100%, but he definitely recovered very well. He's just got the ability to recover. But they said it was an 80% tear of the ACL.
I actually want to watch that. The problem is, I don't. Well, the problem is, you know, is I just haven't made time to watch it, to be honest. But it's also kind of hard because we just feels like we spend so much, you know. And again, the clicks are coming through. It's not like we're delegating how popular Conor McGregor is going to be. But what makes me fatigued about talking about it is that we're talking about the same things. We're talking about the same lineup of guys that Gigi just brought out, and it was a solid perspective. I don't disagree with your perspective at all. The problem is we're taking all these different perspectives, fans, media, all alike, about the same resume that has been an inactive resume. In fact, all those names you just mentioned are all completely different fighters. Aldo, who knows what Mendes is going to be, what he looks like. Look what Holloway's done since then. What happened to Brandao, good or bad. All these guys are completely different guys. And we're still hanging our hats. We're still taking different angles on what he did. Meanwhile, there's guys out there that need to make a living, that need these ranking spots that Alex Davis was talking about, that need these championships that we talk about week in and week out on the show. The championship leads to the money, especially in this climate. And all that's being held up. And we're talking about this. So
by one guy, yeah.
Yeah. So
now
that's
I will say this.
My fatigue on it.
I will say this. You saw them checks Ferguson and Lee cash, right? At UFC 216. Do they get that if Conor hadn't come on the scene about 5 years ago?
No.
Probably not, right?
No.
He also helped these guys along that
100%,
way.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor effect.
That's the best
For
thing you
sure.
can say. Yes.
You know,
yes.
now not everything that he's done as a fan, as a media member, have I said, oh wow, fuck yeah, all the way. I wanted to see title defenses. We never saw him, you know, and things being held up or whatever. But he's also brought so much that I understand why the UFC had to kind of handle him with care, put a fragile around him. You know, but still, he got to these two champions and starched them both, man. Alvarez and Jose Aldo are great fighters, and both of them got starched. He was also saying, why didn't Jose Aldo get a rematch? Well, I don't know, man. You know, again, it's not like I'm a Conor nut hugger. I'm just saying he did this world tour, then Aldo pulled out, then 6 months later he beats him in 13 seconds. Do you really want to see the rematch right away? Now, a classic? Yeah, let's run the rematch. But I think at that point he was fed up, and he was actually looking for a higher ranked higher weight Brazilian in RDA. So it's not like he was running away from anybody. He was actually running to arguably a tougher challenge in RDA. So again, you can't put that pussy label on him or anything. I mean, still the dude came to fight. It was the RDA that pulled out, and then Nate Diaz happened, and then when he lost to Nate, he had to correct that. He had to beat him, and then obviously he went back to chasing the second gold in Eddie Alvarez. I mean, those 4 fights were in 10 months. You know, but again, he's a pain in the ass. He's a pain in the ass. You know, right now, who knows what troubles he may be in? Who knows if he's really partying? What kind of rumors? I don't know if he's following the footsteps of a John Jones in some regard. I hope not. Jason Mayhem Miller pleaded guilty to domestic violence, gets suspended sentence, probation. Wow, some of these I had just forgotten about. Stephen Rocco did a great job, but boy, that guy really has done a lot in the last couple of years, man. I keep hoping that he'll turn things around.
What?
Yeah.
It's just business as usual. We're used to it now at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a domestic violence case, and that's the third one. So you can't even say, oh, it's the one girl, you know. Apparently he's just having all kinds of problems. Who knows? Moving on here, Dana White, Embedded. I caught up on those. I've enjoyed them. Did you guys enjoy them? Are you guys good?
I've only seen the first
no
one.
big deal?
You know me, I'm saving it for dessert, baby.
Josh Emmett steps in to fight Ricardo Lamas. Who pulled out? Who pulled out of Ricardo Lamas? Oh, Aldo. Yeah, okay. So I don't know too much about Josh Emmett, but I got to believe Ricardo Lamas is happy he's fighting. And I don't think it'll be as tough of an opponent. Volkan Ozdemir, Dana White says he's still likely to fight Daniel Cormier. I just don't know if it'll happen in time for Boston, I believe is where they were targeted. And but he said he really didn't know anything about what happened in August until all this came to light in the last few weeks. What Dana has said in regards to that and Conor McGregor is, he says if he worries about every single rumor that's out there, he says he'll be sifting and uncovering and calling and trying to figure out. He goes, a lot of times he may hear something, but when it's really something that the UFC has to then address, it's when he first really gets all of the information that's gathered. Because he goes, I hear these rumors all the time. I don't know if they're true or not.
Can I toot my own horn for a second?
Sure.
One thing that Dana did bring up was the fact that he's not even sure if Conor McGregor will ever fight again in the UFC. That's the one point that I hammered in at the beginning of this whole Mayweather thing. He's going to cash a gigantic check that's going to be tough for him to come back and make. Even if you doubled what he made in his last fight, it's still peanuts compared to what the check he just cashed. And I think that Conor McGregor has it in him where he'll still come back, but I think it's really going to come at a bad cost to the UFC. And if they agree to those type of terms, I think that Conor McGregor effect is going to grow even more, because he didn't just have an effect on people in his weight class. There's heavyweights that were in negotiations because of shit that Conor pulled, that were asking. Fabricio Verdum's a perfect example. A guy was asking for money because he saw what he was getting paid. Look what Tyron Woodley's asking for, stuff like that. It's going to get even worse.
I would love to see an alternate universe Irish Saint McGregor where he's on his 4th title defense, and because of the money he made from the Mayweather fight, all of his proceeds will be going to charity. Tune in this Saturday. That would be great. Sorry.
Dana was there for over an hour, and we were all listening like little schoolgirls. I mean, all the info he was feeding us was incredible. But one reaction he had was when Kevin Iole kind of gave him this look when Dana said Conor may never come back. kind of like, well, you kind of told us he was, and you really had some certainty to it. And Dana gave him a look back. It was this whole look off, like, what? This guy is crazy. What? This guy, that type of thing. And I was sitting there going, I don't have the best memory, but yeah, I heard you say that. And I kind of found a clip here, and I'm going to play it. I should have given it to Danny, but, oh boy.
That's yourself.
I know. I'm trying to figure out how I can pause that.
This is why you should have given it.
I should have given it to you, but here it is. I found it this morning. He's talking to TMZ Sports. It's only a minute long. Let's see.
Taking about 9 sleeping pills and fucking going into a coma for a month. Okay. And look damn good doing it.
Right, so back to the UFC. Winner of Ferguson, Lee, or a trilogy with Nate Diaz?
We're not even thinking about any of that stuff right now.
Listen up.
He fought a tough fight tonight. Let him go
Here
home,
it comes.
spend some time with his family, and we'll get back together.
Movies, he's a big superstar after tonight. Any movies on the horizon?
He was a big superstar before tonight.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, so I don't know about movies. He's a fighter, man. He's not a movie star.
Are you going to go party with him? You hitting surrender?
I'm not partying. I'm going home and taking about 9 sleeping pills and fucking going into a coma for a month.
Okay, all right. Take care, man.
All right, great, George. You're just brilliant. Hold on a second. He says it. I fucking heard it. Now you got to do the whole commercial, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
Let's see if it works. That's the commercial.
Yay.
So how you been?
Good. How about you?
Good. How about you, Dan?
Really good.
Danny?
I'm doing good.
All right. Well, that's funny because that's what I thought. This commercial's almost over. But the TMZ guy does ask him, and he basically kind of guarantees it. So, it just goes back to the fun thing about Dana is he's a promoter. I never forget that. He's a promoter. You can't really hold him to it. It's just when he goes over the top and gives you this look like you're crazy and you're on drugs, that's where us as media kind of tend to go, bitch, we feel you. You're the president of the UFC. We love covering the UFC. But stop looking at us like we're dumb, too, because that's all we do is quote you and write stories about you and talk about you and your fighters. You're one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest star in the UFC. Do not give us that look. All right, but anyway, here's the clip.
Yeah, right.
Are you disappointed at all, Connor?
Not at all.
Not at all.
So proud of the kid. He think about this. When you turn professional in boxing, right? You have to do 4-round fights. Then you move up to 6-round fights. Then you move to 8-round fights, et cetera, et cetera. That kid went out there tonight 0-0 in boxing and went 10 rounds with the best to ever do it.
Everyone's asking you. I know everyone wants to know what's next for Connor. Can you give us a little?
We're gonna go back to the UFC and do what we do.
Guaranteed.
He came out. Oh yeah, he came.
You hear that? Guaranteed? Oh yeah. And then he goes on and says the rest of what he said. Now was it like, Joe Namath guaranteed, where he emphasized it over and over? No, but that's just one. I've heard him say it before on some of the mainstream stuff that he did leading up to that fight and coming out of that fight, and that's why we all sat there confused because. Okay, so. Here's how this carries over. He would be extremely disappointed and pissed, apparently, if GSP doesn't defend or unify with Whitaker. Now, as a guy that's been involved in the UFC for so long, over 15 years, and in combat sports, if we had a whiff that GSP was taking, no disrespect to Bisping, but the easier fight maybe, rather than coming and dealing with Woodley in a weight cut, Bisping, a guy that a lot of people have, just underrated as a champion, which Dana White actually said himself. If we got a whiff of that, why wouldn't he get a whiff of the fact that he may win the title, but then say, these guys are big. I don't know if Romero and Weidman and Rocco, I don't know if I really want to mess with them, and either retire or go fight Woodley or sit there and wait for that big money fight in McGregor. He said he wrote it into the contract, but he would be disappointed. He hasn't come out and said anything towards Connor, but when he gives these guarantees, to me it sounds like, Connor, we'll let you go box, but you're giving us your word, right? You're coming back to the UFC, or there's a good chance you're coming back to the UFC. And I believe from everything I've read from both guys that something like that has to have had happened. Now, why Connor would not come back is just a personal derail, whether it's the partying or legal troubles or whatever. But other than that, that kid likes to fight. He doesn't like movies, just like he says later in this interview. And that's why I feel like Dana probably knew that going in, or maybe even wrote it into their contract. I don't know. He does go on to say that the only thing holding back from a Conor fight taking place is they got to write a new contract.
Yeah. I would imagine going into that fight, if I'm Conor McGregor, I'm thinking, man, if I go in and get wrecked, of course I'm coming back to the UFC. If I go on and put on a pretty decent show, it's like you shed your skin and you become another animal, right? He shed his skin that night and became even bigger. I think that changes his perspective on who he is and what his future lies.
Well, like Ghost said, I kind of hung on to the same words that stuck out to me as far as the most recent Dana White interview, right? As far as, he doesn't, I'm missing the words, but essentially, talking about Conor McGregor may never fight again, right? Whatever that quote was. And what clicked into my head first was the fact of, is this Dana White negotiating scheme where he says one thing and means the other? We've heard this before. Oh, he doesn't want to fight.
It could be that, or it could be that he has a sense that Conor's just not ready to continue as a professional athlete. There's other things. There's other holdups out there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
True, it could be that. But then, and again, now steering away from Dana, not to pick on Dana, but let's just look at it as a whole. Are we in that stage, guys, where whether it's will McGregor come back to the back and forth that George just pointed out, to the GSP example as far as what was in my contract to defend, I'm going to defend, because I'm in a stage, maybe it's just me being jaded, I'm in a stage where I just don't believe it until I see it. I get that they're supposed to say that. I get that it's the right thing to do. And obviously, y'all know me, I'm for the right thing as far as the meritocracy standpoint. But let's be honest, are we in the stage right now where are we just taking everything with a grain of salt now when they say these things?
Kind of.
Right?
It's big business over there, man. On Torrey Pines, no longer Sahara.
Yes.
But, he says he still loves it. Says the company made more money this year than any other year, which, if you'll recall, he's going to get a big bonus out of that. He's still part owner, and he gets a big bonus at the end of the year. So he's happy. Ari Emanuel's happy. The rest of Endeavor's happy. I wish we would have pushed them a little bit more on, like, well, what was it? Since you're a pay-per-view driven business, what else was it that made you some money? I mean, I'm sure that big fight, was a big payday for him, big windfall. But what else? Is the fight pass very lucrative? Or is there a TV deal done in China or Zimbabwe or something that you guys do well in? Or I don't know. But he looked happy, and he hadn't done one of those scrums in a while. I mean, he let us ask 200 questions, maybe even more, and he answered all of them. Dana White scrums are amazing.
Right,
seriously,
yeah,
they really are, and I'm glad that we were able to make videos out of them. And in the past, you just kind of had to either remember it or leave it alone. But now, the times have changed a little.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yes.
I want you guys to explain something to me. Why is it so important to them to make that Robert Whittaker GSP fight?
To UFC?
To the UFC. Why is it they? I've never really. You don't hear Dana say that
I
much.
believe a champion, an undisputed champion, should unify with an interim first possible chance.
Yeah, but is there something about the matchup that even intrigues you guys, really? Especially with GSP going, wow, these guys are pretty big and pretty strong. Wouldn't you guys just rather the guy
maybe because
at 170? Especially, wouldn't you agree?
Maybe because he had to answer to about 10 middleweights that said, "What the fuck are you doing? It should be."
But he's always been okay with brushing that off, right?
Yeah.
So why? Why is this so important? Because I would imagine you could probably make bigger fights at 170. It falls in line with what they like to do. I don't see why this is the one time where he wants to stay true to what that mean. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why this fight? Why is he picking this fight?
I don't know.
I think it could be. I want to say, it's the right thing to do because it is the right thing to do in that sense. But let's be honest, I'm not sure that is the entire reason. I would like to also think that maybe, I'm usually one that I don't like the traditional trope of we're going to use one guy's veteran name talent and feed it to the younger guy, and hopefully some of that dusts off into this guy because he's a longer product. In this case, Robert Whittaker, the younger product, whereas we only got so many fights out of GSP. So in this case, this is a case where I'm 100% on board with that, where, it may not sound like it makes sense. I get what Goes is saying. I'm not denying that, but a guy like Robert Whittaker who's probably going to be around. He's going to be in a menace in whatever division he wants to compete in. You're going to get more miles out of him. But Australian, Oceania market, he's not the biggest talker. There's a lot of things where they're not going to see a lot of money sign as far as that potential reign. So, I'm surprised if we ain't got GSP back. Why don't we just milk that cow while he's here? that sounds bad
to me.
That sounds bad, but you know what? That's
no, he did say Canada's a player again because of GSP.
True.
Yeah. Records were broken.
Yeah.
But how interesting is this? Stephen Thompson was the last guy to beat Robert Whittaker.
Mm-hmm.
Made Whittaker go up. and he's the interim middleweight champion. GSP is the greatest welterweight ever. He's currently the middleweight champion. Kelvin Gastelum, we kind of identified as a welterweight, but because of these punishments and the success on his Legends Tour, he's now kicking ass at 185 pounds. And these are some of the smaller stature guys doing well at middleweight. So it's crazy times. And even if you go back a step, check out George Masvidal had some success, recent troubles. Cowboy won 4 in a row when he went up to welterweight. RDA may get a shot at Tyron Woodley if he can get past Lawler. And we were just talking about Conor McGregor and how he almost fought RDA when he was the lightweight champion. And if you want to keep going down, Dustin Poirier moved up. Conor McGregor moved up and won. So this whole weight thing, interesting that it's not the end-all be-all that it was about 5 years ago, where you just had to be the biggest guy and shed the most so you could dominate.
It just seems so different from what they've been doing. It seems money-wise, it would make sense to do it the other way, but I don't know.
Danny, is it 1:51 p.m. Eastern time if this was a normal show?
Huh?
That's my math.
We got to take a break, right?
We do have to take a break.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Showtime, and then we'll give you the fastest predictions ever on MMA Junkie Radio, Hump Day edition. It's Wednesday, November 29th. Don't forget, we're off tomorrow and Friday, but we literally have to bounce. No OT today because we got to catch a flight to Norfolk, Virginia. We're back. The MMA Junkie Radio tour, number 4. We're going to JBLA, Joint Base Langley Eustis. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Stay close.
With how to whistle. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, we're going to bounce soon. Let's take these 2 calls, and then we'll get out of here. Showtime from Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's your time.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up?
Man, I'm going to reply to that guy talking about Eli Manning. I'm a Mississippi guy, man. I knew about Eli when he was in high school before a whole lot of people did. And I was a big fan of his dad and bigger brother. But man, Eli stinks right now, man. It's time for them. They did the right thing. 2-9. You're not going nowhere. All you're doing is letting them keep starting. I mean, just don't pull the plug and end it. I'm not saying his career over with. He may just need to change the scenery.
Now, is Geno Smith the future, though?
Oh,
no, right?
He's a filler.
Right, so that's why I'm thinking. No, we know.
He had his chances.
He's had his tryouts. We know he's not the future. If it was a bright prospect, I'd say, yeah, go for it. But because they're paying that guy a lot of money, but because I've already seen him flame out on other teams. It just seems bizarre to do to a 2-time Super Bowl champion. I think basically if the season's tanked, you still prepare, and hopefully the way he prepares rubs off on other teammates, and they learn, and basically in the offseason you make your move. But for Geno Smith to win games at this point, what's the point? All right, we've got to move on. Showtime. Sorry, Marco from Waco. You got about 10 seconds. What's up?
Marco from Waco, Duro. Big shout out to Savid Mohamed Sharipov from last weekend.
That guy is stellar. All right, I enjoyed the shout out as well. Aldo or Holloway?
Aldo
or Holloway?
Shout out to caller Hal Holloway.
I'm going with Holloway as well. Overeem or Ngannou?
Ngannou.
Overeem. Cejudo or Pettis? Cejudo.
All right.
Alvarez or Gaethje?
What the?
Gaethje.
I'm still breaking this ones down. You got to stick to the MMAjunkie.
Watterson or Torres?
Torres.
Okay.
No.
All right. We are out of here. We'll be back on Monday. We're off to JBLE. Thank you all for tuning in, adjusting your times to us. Thank you to our guest, Alex Davis, and thanks to John Morgan for setting it up. And we are out of here, folks. So enjoy your weekends. See you, Danny. See you, Dan. The rest of you, be champions.
All those hopes down the drain.